Okay, I'm gonna get started, and everyone else who trickles in will just catch up. Okay, hope everyone is having a good start to the year. Stop sharing my screen for a second. There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex. I am the founder of Detox House, which is a portal for nervous system regulation. Nervous system work has been the most life-changing, game-changing thing in my life. And it's why I'm here sharing it with you today. And it is a privilege and an honor to share this space with you guys. So thank you for joining me today, for giving yourself this time too. Because yeah, carving out time for ourselves in this busy world, things are moving so quickly is so important. So kudos to you for carving this time out. So today we're here because today is really about understanding why we keep getting pulled back into the same state. Similar stress responses, same emotional loops, same relationship patterns, why certain patterns just keep playing out in our lives. And even when you're doing all the right things, even when you're doing all the work and you're still showing up in certain ways, and maybe you feel hijacked by your emotions and your emotional states in certain circumstances. And I have been there, so I can relate more than you know. And I'll share some personal stories as we roll through today. But before we get into it, I just wanted to give you an overview of what we'll be doing in the next hour together, because just giving you a good idea in case you need to carve out more time. I know there's some people that have to leave early, so this will be a good plan for you guys as to what you can expect. So today we'll be going through why falling apart is a nervous system response, and not falling apart doesn't mean you're not feeling your feelings, and it doesn't mean you're avoiding stress. There's no avoidance to stress. We can't avoid life. Life will present itself in different ways. We can't control the people in our lives. We can't control their responses, and we can't control our experiences. No matter how much we want to control everything, we just can't. And we also don't want to. We're human. We're here to experience all of it, all of the humanness. And it's not about avoiding the stress. It's about building capacity to hold more of it because it's not an on and off switch. And so we'll still get to participate in life and feel all the things and ride the waves and learn how to surf. And that's the nervous system work so that we don't get taken out by it. So today, we'll be going through an explanation of why knowing is not enough, why insights and talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy alone is not enough, why the insights you've gained from the books you've read and the podcasts you've listened to are incredible. And this awareness is so incredible, but it is not enough. Because these tools don't work as well unless you address your nervous system. The second thing we'll be going through is the difference between emotional expression, expressing your feelings, expressing your emotions, and emotional processing and letting things go. There is a difference, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'll take you through the five-step approach that I've used. So I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of like throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks and figured out like over the course of the last like really 15 years, and I do not want it to take that long for anybody else, but what has really worked. And there's really like five steps to the Embodied Freedom Method that I created. And so I'll take you through that and explain to you each one of these steps so that you can integrate and incorporate them into your daily life. We'll do an exercise together too, a really fun journaling exercise to see where your specific nervous system is at, specifically related to some of the things you want this year. It's the beginning of the year. we've all done our vision boards or goal setting, all the things, and all, whatever ritual you have, there's definitely certain things you all want to experience in 2026. And I mean, so do I. And we'll learn what may be a roadblock or what may be getting in the way of us actually living this out. And then throughout all of this, you'll get a better understanding if nervous system work is your missing piece, if it resonates with you. So just a quick housekeeping item. We have the chat here on the side. Use it throughout this whole talk. If you have questions that come up, just type it in the chat. I'll go through Q&A at the very end of this as well, but don't hold on to it. Just ask it here and we'll get through everything. So actually, let's start with the chat. I have a question for you all. So we're all here for a reason. Like I said, it's 2026. It's the beginning of the year. We've all set our goals. We've all had, again, whatever ritual you have, whether you vision board, whether you think about a word for your year, whether you have certain goals, the life that you want requires the nervous system that you want to be able to hold it. So your mind can actually want the next level, and your soul can want the next level, and you can even feel deserving of your next level. But if your body and if your nervous system associates the next level with danger or more, like danger, quote unquote, as in more visibility, more responsibility, more change, more eyes on you, more uncertainty, more pressure. It's different. It's not anything you've experienced before. You want something totally new that you've never experienced before. Your nervous system will have to catch up to it. So in the chat, I would love to hear things that you guys are wanting to call in this year, to experience this year. Is it more health, vitality, peace, freedom? Is it relationship? Is it building a family? Is it a new home? Is it a new job? Is it growth in your career? Is it more money? Whatever it is, I would love to hear from you. Peace, yes, inner peace, something we all need. Joy, love, yes. This is my year of more fun associated with more joy, so I hear you on that. Love that. Money and love. Money and love are very connected as well. The root of that is safety and security. Growing a family, yes. There's definitely nervous system stuff around growing a family, growing. It's stepping into worlds we haven't lived before. If you are calling in motherhood and you haven't been a mother, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely there could be fear around that and just addressing the nervous system component to that. Building a company, right? Growing more, growing bigger, holding more money, holding more people, being responsible for more people. All of that requires nervous system work. Yeah, feeling safe inside. We're going to talk a lot about safety in the body today. I love all these. Thank you for sharing. So the first thing that I really wanted to talk about is the fact that these things live on the other side of your nervous system. It's not your willpower, it's not your mindset, it's your nervous system that runs the show. And it's really like at the root of all these things. And where does your nervous system come from? So, like, where is it built? Where is it formed? And one of the biggest pieces that I think, again, psychology, therapy understands this, but it's, childhood experiences. And it's really 0 to 7 years old. So, the hidden cost of early childhood. And it doesn't have to mean that you had a bad childhood. I mean, there are definitely, everything is a spectrum, right? There are definitely adverse childhood experiences, which I have, definitely experienced those. There's the ACE score. And then there are just your early childhood, whatever programming was instilled in you. It doesn't have to be this big T trauma. It can be, but it also doesn't have to be. It's just whatever you experience, whatever your body created as a protective mechanism in your early childhood that allowed you to survive. And so I'll be talking a lot about survival mode, but I think a better word for it is protection mode. Survival mode sounds so intense, and you don't have to always be in like panic or fight or flight. And that's not what I mean about survival mode. I just mean it's a protective mechanism. So in early childhood, 0 to 7 years old, we are in a theta brainwave state, which means that we are a sponge. We're a sponge to everything around us. So people, whatever people are saying, whatever people are exhibiting, things you witness, things you notice. And of course, 0 to 7 years old, um, we are basically trying to survive because we're so reliant. That's the word I was looking for. We're so reliant on our caregivers for survival. We can't do anything without them. And so whatever programs were instilled in your nervous system for survival it's a thread that runs throughout your life. And I'll share a personal example to kind of make this real for you, but I do want to preface that this isn't a blame or shame game. I did that for a long time. I definitely went to therapy for a long time, blaming my mother for everything. And this isn't about that. This is about just accepting what it was, building compassion and empathy. There's a lot of reasons why I didn't get the love that I needed growing up. And it's to no fault of her own, my parents' own. They did the best they could. But it's about really accepting what was. And there's a process for that too. And there was a lot of grief that came with that, by the way. I went through a grieving process with that. But it's about accepting what is and just finding the underlying program and rewiring it and then noticing how your life changed. So I was born in Poland, Eastern Europe, to very, very young parents. They were 23 years old when they had me, and they were still living in a college dorm because they were both getting their master's degrees. So they were still students. And my mom did not have the most like idyllic childhood or a good example of what motherhood would look like. And so, first of all, my birth was very, very traumatic. I mean, I mean, it required a C-section, but there was no such thing back then. In Eastern Europe, we just kind of went with it. And it was a very traumatic birth. And I didn't get the attunement that I needed. My mom had very bad postpartum depression, and she just wasn't really all that present and all that there. And I was getting, they were relied on community to help too, living in a college dorm. Anyway, the point is, as a baby, I needed a caregiver to survive. Like you're a blob that needs to be fed and emotionally attuned to, and that is, you need to belong to this unit in order to survive. And so for me, the messaging was actually, I couldn't cry to get what I wanted because crying, I learned was creating anxiety in my environment. So if I didn't cry, if I was the perfect baby, I would get fed and I would get more cuddles if I didn't cry. And so what this kind of led to is this like I was a good kid and a good girl. And if I behaved this way, if I was quiet enough, if I just didn't have any needs, I would survive. So it was a protective mechanism. It was brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. Like this little baby can create this protective mechanism to be fed and to yeah, to get what they need. And so I obviously didn't build this awareness of this knowledge until later on in life, but it definitely allowed me to realize, oh my gosh, this is a pattern. This is a survival and protective mechanism. Like I have to be the good student, the good girl, the good patient, just not have any needs in order to feel safe in the world, which again was a perfect survival mechanism. It was so brilliant, but it was no longer necessary. So there are definitely parts of ourselves that we created. Those parts were protective parts. If anybody knows anything about IFS, internal family systems, this is kind of that work where there's parts of ourselves that we create in order to protect ourselves. And they're expired. They're expired programs that we no longer need. And it doesn't show up always as like, again, when we talk about nervous system, a lot of people think about like, oh, you're either in fight or flight or you're in rest and digest. And it's not as simple as this like on and off switch. And it doesn't have to be this like panic mode. It's a protective mode. And the protective modes go into autopilot. So then it just becomes your life. So a good example of this is like everybody here has a route home, a commute home, whether you work from home or you work from an office or you just know how to get home. And you don't have to think about getting home. Whether you drive or you walk or you're taking the subway or train, you're not thinking about getting home because it's deeply wired in you because you've done that path so many times. Obviously, if you move to a new house, then you have to pay attention the first few times where you're like, oh, I turn here, I turn there, this is like a good route. And that shifts your neural pathways and builds new roads in your brain. But the road that you go down constantly becomes autopilot. So these behaviors, these patterns, they're so deeply wired in us that they become our autopilot, and then it just becomes a pattern that we don't even notice. We don't have any awareness to it. It lives in our subconscious. And it doesn't always like it could present itself as in different ways. Again, it's a protective mechanism. It's not always like this panic survival mode. But yeah, some examples of what survival mode could look like is snapping at somebody and then you hate yourself for like how you showed up and you're like, "Ugh, I didn't love how I showed up in that moment." Another example of survival mode is overthinking until you spiral, being successful on paper and checking off all the boxes, but still not feeling safe and still not feeling fulfilled and feeling like something's like not quite there. Doing all of the yoga, therapy, taking all the supplements, but nothing's really sticking. You can't really be present in your yoga class. You're like nothing is actually sticking. I mean, even with supplements, we can't absorb nutrients if our body is like humming in survival mode underneath. It just won't work. So, yeah, and then there's the unresolved emotions that we haven't let ourselves to feel, and those unresolved emotions, so those looping emotions can also cause physical inflammation in our body, and it has effect on the physical. It has an effect on everything. Everything that's showing up in our lives, our relationship patterns, our physical body, all of the things. So, yeah, the childhood story I shared with you earlier, me as a baby, that again, that awareness didn't come through until I started doing this work because my own physical body was shutting down. It just was not cooperating with me. So I was in college, I was in my last year of college, and I was just constantly depleted. I was in college in New York City. I went to Fordham and I was very high functioning. So I was doing all of the things. I was a tutor. I had an internship at a fashion company. I was going to school. I had a social life, like literally constantly doing. And now that I look back on it, a lot of it I wasn't really present for. I was distracting a lot. I was just like tr not only distracting, but also trying to be a good student, a good patient, a good girl, like just to prove that I'm worthy or belong. You know, it was a protective mechanism. The doing was a protective mechanism. And so yeah, I it was finally catching up to me. The physical symptoms were too much to bear. Like I couldn't even move my body at times. It felt like a heavy piece of machinery. Everything that I ate hurt my stomach. There was just things that I needed to address. So I'm at the doctor's office. I'm 21 years old and I'm sitting in front of this guy and he's looking at my lab work and he just looks at me and he's like, I don't even know how you're sitting here. You have literally like tapped out your adrenals. Your cortisol levels are shot. Like you're running on empty. You're totally empty. So that means that for the last like however many years, your cortisol levels were so high so through the roof that you finally just like ran out of gas. You're tapped out. And I was like, okay, great. I have an answer. Cool. Like this means I can do something about it. Tell me what to do. And he was like, I think you need to address your cortisol levels, which means you're way too stressed. Like what's stressing you out? And I was so disconnected from my body at that time that I was so mad at him. I was like, I'm not stressed. Like, I'm not more stressed than any other college student. Like, I'm not more stressed than my roommate. Like, nothing's happening. Like, I don't understand what you mean by stress. This is so frustrating for me. And I'm so like angry. Like, I don't like it just seemed so also like there was no and like, how do I manage my stress? What do I do? Okay, I guess I'll go to yoga. I'll try meditating. I'll take like adaptogen supplements. I'll do therapy. And I like again went on my way. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can like check these things off. And it's not what you do, it's how you do it, right? So like my energy behind like doing yoga and doing therapy and all these things were still protective, still like I gotta do all these things. I gotta like I still didn't feel safe in my body. So yes, I went to therapy, and therapy helped me understand my stories so much. But I would still leave the therapist's office and I would feel good for about like 20 minutes after. And then I would be right back into my patterns and right back into feeling so overwhelmed by life. And so it didn't really change my behavior, but it did help me find more peace around certain things that were happening and more understanding. So it definitely was a good layer. And knowing is beautiful, but knowing is not enough. It has to be registered in the body. We have to take these insights and actually integrate them into the nervous system so that we can stop living out of these survival modes. So it's not like none of these things are a character flaw. It's literally your nervous system running an old program if you're feeling this way. It's just an old program that like you don't need anymore. So I'm here trying to manage my stress with yoga classes and reading all the self-help books and listening to all the podcasts. And look, it did a lot of these things helped reveal so much to me and build a lot of awareness. But again, at the end of the day, I was like, I have all this awareness and it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful, but I'm still showing up the same way. My life still looks the same. I'm still spiraling. I'm still like afraid of a lot of the things that I was afraid of. And I'll share some of these things that I was afraid of. And again, this is hindsight. I wasn't consciously aware of this at the time, but I was really afraid of building like intimate connections with people because I was afraid of both sides. I was afraid of being seen because I didn't want to be rejected. So I didn't want people to see all parts of me. I was afraid to reveal myself. I was afraid to have difficult conversations. I was afraid to express my emotions of like if I was mad at somebody or if I had an issue with something they were doing, I just was like, oh no, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want them to see this part of me. And then also the other way around, I didn't want to get to know them better because I'm like, I don't want them to ruin this image of them that I have. And like I'm too scared to like know them because I'm afraid I'll hear something I don't want to hear. And it like didn't allow me to build deep, intimate connections with people and be present in my relationships. And then and it didn't allow me to hold difficult moments too. I mean, I would spiral over little things like even if somebody I was dating canceled a date on me, not even breaking up with me, but like canceling a date and rescheduling it. I was like, what does that mean? What's happening? I don't feel safe. I would go in a spiral. And it was all, again, old stories, old programming in my nervous system that would trigger this. And I would consciously understand. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with rescheduling. Consciously, I knew that. And like, but my body didn't know that. My body was still reacting. I was still like, oh, I can't sleep. I feel uneasy. What is this? And some people may say, oh, it's like there's a difference between fear and intuition. And there's definitely a difference between a nervous system response and an old loop and an old pattern replaying itself and just like being aware of your environment. The awareness of both of those things is very important. But some of the ways that I would handle difficulty in my life, bad news, or people, quote unquote, feeling rejected, feeling these things. I created these stories in my head, by the way. I don't think a lot of 99% of them were not true. But I would get hysterical. So, this whole call is about feeling it all without falling apart. Feeling things is incredible, but there's a difference between emotional expression where when it's at somebody and also when it's like you're almost like the snowball effect of like when you're angry at somebody and then you tell your friend like I'm angry at this person. I can't believe they said this. I can't believe that they did this. And your friend is like, yeah, like that they're awful, like hate them, da, 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 da. And obviously a great friend of like rooting you on, but at the same time, that actually continues to reinforce the loop. And so while you think you're releasing these feelings, you're actually not that's emotional expression, but you're not actually feeling into what this feeling really means. If this person said something to you that made you feel angry, the emotional processing and letting it go really looks like not directing your feelings and emotions at somebody, but sitting with the anger is really uncomfortable, but it only takes 90 seconds. Research says, and I've experienced this personally, it only takes 90 seconds to feel a feeling, sitting with it. Underneath the anger is grief. And that grief is about just feeling rejected. I don't feel like I belong, da, 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 da. And it's like feeling of like not belonging, just sitting in that feeling of, oh, I'm different, or whatever it is that comes up, sitting in that anger, sitting in that grief, and then letting it go. Like actually feeling, having it move through your body is what emotional processing and letting emotions move through you looks like, versus what I would do is again emotional expression and just like getting hysterical and damage, and it caused damage because it would also be unprocessed, and I would just say things I didn't mean to people that hurt me, and it was just not good. The other way that I would respond is I would numb and distract. So like let's go out, let's travel, let's like do literally anything other than sit in this. And then I would also co-regulate with friends, which co-regulation is such a beautiful thing. We're meant to do this together. Um, we are not meant to do this alone. However, my codependency came through in a big way during this time. So I would like not be able to do anything alone, which was again not ideal. So oh yes, Kathy, I see. We're definitely told to skip the feeling and find the solution. The solution is feeling the feeling and letting that go and creating that space and feeling your feelings in this way is so, so important. So this is like the work that I do in my state shift program. We spend 2 weeks like really feeling the feeling through breath work. I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. But yeah, the real problem underneath all of these responses, like all of these things, all these mechanisms, the distraction, the numbing, the hysterics, the like, I can't do anything alone. I can't be alone. I can't sit with my own thoughts. It's all nervous system, and it's all your nervous system being in protection mode. So it's not, again, it's survival mode, it's protection mode. I like to use the analogy of like my alarm is going off downstairs, but it's just my neighbor is walking by. Like that's not dangerous, but my alarm's going off unnecessarily. And so you want your nervous system to work appropriately, where like if you're actually in danger and if you're actually getting chased by a tiger, I mean, I don't know if that's like a real life scenario at this point, but like, yeah, if you're actually in danger, then it will go off and you'll have your adrenaline rush. You'll be able to go into fight or flight, which is a very useful tool. The problem is our alarms go off unnecessarily when somebody says something that triggers a deep inner child wound in us, and then we react from a very like primal place. It's very primal. That's why, again, you have to address the primal response because we may be evolved enough to understand and have these insights and say, you know what? I know my mother didn't have the tools she needed, and I have so much empathy for her. But even to this day, when my mom says something to me and like it triggers an old wound, it goes into fight or flight until I heal it, until I'm like, oh, that's no longer needed anymore, Alex. Like, that's no longer a story you need. And then my response is totally different. So I really noticed this work working when I was able to respond differently. Like, I was almost like, it was almost an out of body experience, like the first time this happened a handful of years ago where my mom said something to me that usually would have sent me on a spiral. And I just looked and I was like so calm and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that like you feel that way. And I was like, whoa, who am I? Like this is now regulated and it's not triggering me in the same way. And I'm responding in like a beautiful way and showing her love. And it almost confused her. And she was like, huh, what? Oh, this is great. And it's just like, yeah, the nervous system work, when you see it play out in how you're showing up, it really reinforces to the brain that this works. These expired programs are things you no longer need. So I definitely see this time and time again where most people are trying to solve a state problem with a strategy and they get too much in their heads about it and they're not in their bodies. And so this work, this nervous system rewiring work is about bridging the gap. The head is great. it's not like but yeah, we do want to get out of our head and into our body and like sync the body with the head and make sure both are aligned and working. So back to like the tools that we use and the tools that I use didn't really stick. Like the therapy work wasn't working. I was looping. I was constantly talking about the same thing over and over again. I was looping. I wasn't able to move forward. I was meditating, but my meditation was an escape. I was going into my room, my little cocoon, meditating, and then I would go back out into the real world and I was still like, this person said this and that person said that. And like in meditation, I was fine, but I still couldn't handle life. So it was the nervous system work is about expansion. It's about being able to hold all of life. And so it's not that you need to get rid of these tools. They're beautiful. Therapy, insights, great. Take the insights and then rewire the things you learn. Yoga, meditation, it becomes a new version of that where you're able to like really tap into your own inner voice. You're able to be super present. And so these tools, they really don't work unless your nervous system piece is addressed. And so what you actually need is like a new baseline state, and you need the protective mechanisms that you used to have that are expired to be rewired for safety, for expansion, for stepping into this new life. And so like when I started doing this work, my life went from like living in black and white to living in color. So um so how I got into this, so obviously I was like in this dysregulated state and I was doing everything, listening to all the podcasts, and I signed up to go on this conference. This was 10 years ago, Summit at Sea. And there's like a huge health track on there. And I walk into this room with this guy named Wim Hof. And he's pretty big now, but 10 years ago, it was still like up and coming. He's the Iceman. He climbed Mount Everest in his shorts using breath work. And I was like, I don't really need to do that. I don't really need to climb Mount Everest in my shorts, but I just want to feel better. So I walk into this class with Wim Hof, and he's like, okay, we're going to teach you how to breathe. And I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen? I don't understand this breathwork thing, but let's do it. And we're all breathing. Like, I think there was like about 100 people in this room. And like, I'm sitting like pretty much like very close to him, just like looking up at him. Like, this crazy man is teaching me like how to breathe this way. And everyone starts breathing, and like, it all sounds very weird to me. And I'm still skeptical. And I'm like doing it, but I peek my eyes open to like look around the room, and everybody's like super into it and intense. And it feels like, everyone's like finding this peace, like that feeling of peace. I see it. And I'm like, okay, I need to like plug into whatever. I like really need to give this a try. And so I just start breathing in that way. And I think I don't even remember, because when you're in breath work, time transcends, you transcend time. So I don't even remember how long we were doing the breath work for, but typically it's about 45 minutes. And the 45 minutes feels like 5 minutes because, again, when you do breath work, when you get into those states, you transcend time. It feels like nothing. So I came to, and I was like, what was that? Like, I felt it in my body physically, like this down regulating, this down shifting, this like, oh my God, I feel different. I went somewhere. I need to do more of this. And at the time, I was living in San Francisco, and my neighbor was experiencing debilitating back pain. I have a podcast episode about this too. I interviewed him on it. He was experiencing debilitating back pain to the point where he was like not wanting to be here anymore. He was like, I'm in so much pain and nothing can help me. But I've been doing breath work, and I've been doing these cold plunges, and I've been really into this stuff. So I went to some breath work classes with him, and this is about emotional release. So his name was Anderson Pugash. Are you talking about Wim Hof? Wimhof. Wim Hof is the Iceman guy. So I'm doing this breath work, and I see my friend experience serious emotional processing for the first time ever. His dad died when he was 18. He finally grieved it, and his back pain went away. And it was like me witnessing that. I was like, okay, I'm all in on this breathwork thing. So then I got certified. I'm expediting the story a little bit because I feel like we got to get into the exercises now. Sorry, I'm talking so much. Um, so I got into breath work and did so much of it. It became part of my life, felt so much change. Like I said, the shifts were so palpable. I noticed how my behavior was changing, how my triggers were disappearing. The work was working, and I was doing a lot of other things at the same time. So I was doing something called To Be Magnetic. It was manifestation work. I was doing therapy. I was doing EMDR. I was doing a lot of things. And so throughout this time, I basically collected everything that worked for me. And I was like, okay, this is the pattern and this is the mechanism. And so that's what brought me to create the Embodied Freedom Method, which is this five-step approach, because I was like, this is the way that this works. And this is from a lived experience that I really experienced. So there's five phases. The first phase is finding safety in the body. So, no matter what, your body is going to need to feel safe. Before you feel anything, before you deal with emotional processing, before anything, finding safety in the body and learning what makes your body feel safe. Because sometimes we can become so disconnected from ourselves, even when we think we are, like learning what our patterns are, learning what makes our nervous system and our bodies feel safe. So, that's step one. So, sometimes there's a lot of fear, right? That bubbles up. So we have a fear. Speaking of the emotions piece, we don't fear the emotion itself almost. We fear feeling it. We don't want to feel it. We're like, I don't want to do the work. Some people don't even go to therapy because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe uncovering things. They literally just do not feel safe in their bodies. They don't feel safe to live life. They don't feel safe to explore. It is an underlying nervous system mechanism where you're in survival mode, where you're in protection through and through. So finding safety in the bodies and finding safety cues. I have tips for this, and we go through this in my state shift program. Like the first week is literally spent on just finding safety in the body. So figuring out how you can give yourself that nurturing environment. What made you feel safe as a kid? What are those elements? Sounds, smells, tastes, like really honing in on safety in the body. The second piece is emotional release. So I gave you the example of my neighbor. This is a big example that it doesn't have to be so big. It doesn't have to be so heavy, right? That is a very big example. But emotional release is like literally like brushing your teeth at night, like making sure that you are sitting with the things that may have made you uncomfortable or you didn't want to feel and allowing them to move through your body. It literally takes 90 seconds. And but you can't do it. You can't do that unless you feel safe. And you can't access those places unless you feel safe. And so breath work is a really beautiful way to find safety in the body. Breath work is also a really great way for emotional release. We literally use breath work to release things out of our body. Sometimes we don't even know or have to know why we're feeling the feeling, but I found myself in some breathwork classes, in some breathwork experiences where I would just start crying. And like, I don't even know why I'm crying, but I know my body needs to release this. It's grief. And I don't need to understand it. My body just ho was holding on to some sort of grief over something. And again, I need to get out of my head. I don't need to analyze the grief. I don't need to be like, oh, it's probably grief over this breakup, da 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 da. No, I just need to feel it. Like get out of my head, get into the body and just feel the feeling. And after breath work, I cried for 90 seconds and then I was just like, I feel so much lighter, like this, like I can float through the day. It's just hygiene. And so making sure you're held in that experience is super important because big things can come up. So it's little things, it's big things. So you don't want to just do this willy-nilly without a guide. You need a guide, you need some help, you need to be held in the experience of emotional release and emotional processing and letting it go. So then the third part to all of this, so like once you feel safe in the body and once you've created space, so now it's like there's space, there's space here, then you find your target statement. The target statement is super, super important. So this is like one of the most important pieces, and this is your specific limiting belief, and it's so important for this to be very specific. So someone can say, I'm spiraling over a breakup. But the real reason is because I'm triggered because I don't feel chosen. That might be the story for one person. Another person might be going through a breakup, but their story is, I don't feel like I'm enough. The other person who might be going through a breakup, their story might be, actually, I just don't think anything for me exists. Like I don't think that the thing that I want exists and that's my story. Or I don't get, other people get. A healthy relationship is not for me, it's for other people because there was some sort of childhood programming where they saw everybody get something and they didn't get. And so their specific sentence is, other people get, I don't. So the target statement is really, really important because that's when you figure out like what is it for you? It's your specific statement. It has to be unique to your experience and your experience alone because your brain wants to like adjust to like what is your specific statement. Your brain has to like it has to click in. So if somebody says like, "Oh yeah, I'm not enough," is your target statement, that might not resonate. I'm like, no, I feel like enough. But really, what my story is, I don't get, other people get. Because I mean, I grew up seeing that. And so that was a limiting belief of mine that I had to rewire and then prove to my brain that that's actually not true. So then the fourth step is rewiring your story. So I am enough. I am chosen. I do get to have these things. And then the fifth step is reinforcing. The reinforcing is the fun part. It's where you give your brain proof every single day. So it's where you change your commute pattern. You brush your teeth with the different hand. You create new neural pathways in the brain because there's definitely mechanisms for this. And again, this is where I guide people through in the state shift through different mechanisms of rewiring and what will reinforce things. Cold plunges are really great. You don't have to do a cold plunge. You don't have to do a cold shower. There are definitely other ways of creating more neuroplasticity in the brain where you give your brain proof of these new beliefs that you can hold motherhood, right? Like if you're manifesting being a mom and your limiting belief is like, I don't get to have that, other people get to have that. Or maybe there's a fear around more responsibility. I don't want to be responsible for another life. Or maybe there's a fear of lack of safety. Like there's no safety around me where I can like hold this because of X, Y, and Z. And so just proving to your brain that that's not true every single day is a really fun part. But it has to be, again, very unique to your brain, very specific to your brain. So again, this work, this embodied freedom method, these 5 steps of finding safety in the body and releasing emotions so you're creating space, finding your target statement, rewiring the target statement through neuroplasticity and reinforcing it. That is the step. So I want to do a little exercise with you guys. I want to do a little journaling exercise. I'm going to play some music and I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So a lot of you have in the chat when we first started, you shared some things that you want this year. So I'm going to actually put these in the chat, these questions. But before we get into the journaling, I do want to do a like quick check-in with your body. Just take a moment, close your eyes real quick. Close your eyes. Take an inhale through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. And just notice anywhere in the body that you're holding tension. Relax your jaw. Relax your shoulders. And just get into your heart space. This is a beautiful way to get out of your head, just into your heart. Notice your heart. Tap into that heart space, that energy. Bring awareness and attention to the energy around your heart. Now I want you to picture the things that you want, having the things that you want. Whatever it is you wrote in at the very beginning, picture yourself having that relationship that you're calling in, the peace, the baby, the career. And now I want you to flutter your eyes open. And I'm going to paste some questions into the chat here. I want you to take out a pen and paper. Or use your notes app on your computer or on your phone. And I want you to answer, was there anything in your dream life that your body doesn't feel safe having? Is there anything you're afraid of by having these things? So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to journal on these. You can keep writing as I'm chatting through, but it's very real to have fears of holding some of the new things that we haven't experienced. And if we deny those parts, if we deny those fears, then we can't address them or rewire or get ourselves back to safety so that we can expand and we can actually hold these things that we want. The nervous system is really at the root of our next level. You know, some people get to the next level and then they lose it because they can't hold it because they haven't addressed the nervous system piece of it. And so this work is super, super important, addressing your patterns, releasing emotions so you can create space is super important, and just addressing, yeah, the expansion and the rewiring is it's really important. The beauty of neuroplasticity is that it indicates that we are not a victim to whatever patterns we've experienced or whatever life circumstances we've experienced. There is definitely a necessary acceptance of these things and the ability to change them for ourselves through rewiring our beliefs and seeing how these things shift. I mean, I've witnessed it in my life, and it's just been so, so incredible when you rewire that limiting belief and then you see how everything in your life shifts. And so it's not about blaming or shaming. There could be a lot of joy in this process too. And I mean, that's my philosophy, the work that I do. I try to find the lightness in it because some of this stuff can get heavy. Um, I didn't share this during this chat, but like I've been through some heavy things in my life and after this work too. So in 2019, I lost my ex-boyfriend. decided to leave this planet. And then afterwards, my grandmother died, my uncle died, and it was like all within the span of 9 months. I was like, okay, this is a lot to hold. And then I decided to move to Nashville, where two of my best friends were, and I was getting ready to work on this work with my best friend, Jess, who was a psychologist. She had her PhD from Stanford and knew that the body was missing from her therapy. She was a therapist and she was like, the body's missing. So we went on to do this work, but we didn't get to work together because Jess got diagnosed with a terminal illness and died within 12 months. And so me witnessing this and just like having the life hit me hard, and I don't wish this upon anybody. It doesn't have to be this intense and this heavy, but life really hit me hard. And because of this work, I was able to move through it with grace and still find beauty in all of it, which sounds crazy. But it was, yeah, there was intimacy, there was more love, there was community, so many things. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like we can't control all the external stuff, but we can control how we show up. And this work is about that. It's about expansion. And I mentioned a few, like, again, intense and heavy things that happened, but there were also like really beautiful things that happened, like starting a business, like doing this, getting to do these workshops, teaching breath work in front of so many people. I taught a breath work class of 100 people at one point. I'm like, this is great. And I want to expand myself to experience more of this and have more beauty and joy in my life. And that is exactly what this work is. And so if you're writing these things and if you're like, I want these things, especially this year. These are some of the things that I want. If nervous system work sounds like the missing piece for you, which again it was for me, and this resonates with you, I will invite you. I have an 8-week program where we go through these 5 steps. I teach breath work every single week in community, so we can do this together. It's a weekly live practice and coaching every single week. If you can't make the live calls, there are recordings. And then there's access to the Detox House app, which gives you practices, shorter little mini practices that you can use to reinforce on a regular basis. But yeah, the nervous system is, it is a big missing piece. And so I definitely want to highlight that you finding safety in your body, feeling your feelings in a productive way, finding your limiting belief, rewiring that and reinforcing that every way is the path to living the life that you want to live and showing up in the way you want to show up. So I will now open it up to any questions that you may have. If you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. Be happy to answer them. And if you don't feel comfortable asking specific questions here, also, I'll put my email here. You can email me at any time, and I'm happy to chat through any nervous system, limiting beliefs, anything. Are the stories the same for every instance? Like is it one overarching limiting belief that applies to everything? No, there's not. There are different programs. So you probably, but there is a through line. And so I will say that in the work that I've done, there definitely have been different limiting beliefs, but there was one core one. So if you knock that one core one out, it knocks a lot of them out. So yeah, there is that like figuring out like, oh, I don't feel safe to be myself, knocked a lot of core ones out. And then there was like a specific sentence to that as well that registered for my brain. Um, but there are different limiting beliefs about, there's different beliefs about money, there's different programs about money, there's different programs about relationships, there's programs about health and wellness, there's different programs and they're very nuanced and unique to your specific experience. So just understanding like your patterns. And I'll give you a quick tip too. A lot of times you can understand your patterns by seeing what's coming up for you in the present day. So there are some people that I work with and they're like, I don't really want to go on and like look at like my childhood. They're just like not comfortable with that. I'm like, okay. Um, So just look at what's happening right now in your current day. Like assess your existing environment and see like what is being reflected back at you. Are and on a very, very micro level. So are people like canceling on you? Are you seeing a pattern that like you're getting these meetings, but you're not like closing the deal? You're getting these like little small bites of something in your career, but like nothing's like actually following through. Like whatever it is, notice the patterns at a very micro level in current state today. And that is a great way to see, like, okay, what are the patterns here and what could that possibly mean? And you can just like do your own investigative work. Again, it's always helpful with a guide, with a coach for sure. And I'm here and I'm happy to help. But noticing what's happening in present day is a really great way of seeing that if you don't want to dig back into some of the like 0 to 7 experiences. Again, I think and from what I've seen, everything really comes down to what happened 0 to 7. Even the things that happen later on in life where you've had like crazy experiences at like 16 or 20, they're still tied. They're still somehow tied back to whatever survival mechanisms were at play at 0 to 7 years old. Any other questions? Thank you so, so much for sharing this time with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it and keep in touch, please. And I'll be sending out more details on the state shift program if anybody resonated with the nervous system work. Thank you. Oh, good. Love the clarity. Wonderful. Bye, guys.